Thank you so much for coming to On the Map for Emergency Management. My name is Sarah Fisher, and I am the Community Engagement and Outreach Strategist for Region 2 of the Network of the National Library of Medicine. And today, I'm your host. I have a few informational items to cover before we get to the presentation. Everyone has been muted to limit the background noise. We do welcome your questions and comments at any times, so please feel free to use the chat function to share those comments and to submit any questions you have for the speaker. We are lucky to have Molly Knapp and Erica Lake today providing production assistance, and they will be keeping an eye on your posts, and we'll queue up questions as they come in and save them for our speaker to address at the end of his presentation. As a reminder, by registering for this webinar, all attendees have agreed to abide by the NNLM Code of Conduct to foster a respectful and professional learning environment. Closed caption has been enabled and is available by clicking on the icon at the bottom of your screen with the three dots and then selecting closed caption. We are recording today's presentation and will post it on NNLM's YouTube channel in 1 to 2 weeks. At that time, everyone who is registered for this session will also receive an email from us with the link to that recording, so keep your eyes peeled. And this webinar is eligible for the Medical Library Association and CHES Continuing Education's credits, which you'll be able to claim through the evaluation link that we share at the end of the session. And speaking of evaluation, your feedback matters and helps us improve future trainings, ones like this. So please take a moment to complete it. And since some of you may be first-time attendees to one of our webinars, I'd like to share a couple of words about who we are. You will see the hierarchy of the NIH, NLM, and the NNLM coming up. And the National Library of Medicine, otherwise known as the NLM, is one of the 27 institutes and offices of the National Institutes of Health. It's the world's largest biomedical library and produces online resources like PubMed and Medline Plus. The NNLM is the network of the National Library of Medicine and is an outreach program of the NLM and works to ensure health professionals and the public have equal access to health information. The NNLM is also made up of 7 regional medical libraries, 3 national offices, and 4 national centers, all providing training, funding, and engagement opportunities to over 9,000 NNLM member organizations. If you'd like to connect with your regional medical library or learn how to become a network member, you can check out our website at nnlm.gov. And today's session is part of an exciting NNLM virtual disaster preparedness forum, which is taking place today, September 12th through September 28th. And this forum features expert speakers presenting on data tools and resources, disaster planning, communication, and institutional preparedness with a focus on greater inclusiveness and community resilience. You can learn more about this forum and register for the other sessions by checking out the NNLM training calendar, and we will drop the link for our training calendar into the chat. If you're listening and you want to write it down right now, it's the nnlm.gov/training. And we are also excited to highlight a collaboration with another NNLM program. And so in observance of National Preparedness Month, the month of September. The NNLM Reading Club has selected 3 books and gathered information from trustworthy resources to help you take action and stay safe. So more information is available on the NNLM Reading Club website, and we'll drop that link into the chat too. It is nnlm.gov/reading-club. So here we go. Drum roll, please. It is my absolute great pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Mr. Tim Sarko has been employed by the U.S. Census Bureau for over 28 years, and he initially served as a supervisory survey statistician in 1995. Currently, as a data dissemination specialist, Tim is responsible for program planning, coordination, and implementation of data dissemination and outreach, as well as media activities for the Census Bureau. He promotes the use of census data to anyone with an interest or a need to work with this valuable information, including media, community organizations, municipal officials, chambers of commerce, librarians, students, public health officials, and entrepreneurs. Welcome, Tim. My camera has been turned off, and I'm now turning the session over to you. We're excited to learn from you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about On the Map for Emergency Management and Community Resilience Estimates. But first, here's our outline. I'm first going to talk about the American Community Survey basics because of these data tools, On the Map for Emergency Management and My Community Explorer. A large part of that is the American Community Survey. And then I'm going to also in those data tools is longitudinal employer household dynamics. I'm going to talk briefly about that. And then I'm going to go through On the Map for Emergency Management and talk a little bit about community resilience estimates. And then I'm going to introduce you to My Community Explorer, and then some resources for learning more, and then any kind of questions that you may have. The American Community Survey, it's the nation's most current, reliable, and accessible data source for local statistics on critical planning topics such as age, children, veterans, commuting, education, income, and employment. It does survey over 3.5 million addresses a year, and it's responsible for over $675 billion of federal government spending. It covers over 40 topics. It supports over 300 evidence-based federal government uses, and it produces 11 billion estimates each year. And it's important to know that it's released twice a year, the data, as 1-year estimates. Those are for populations of 65,000 or more, and as 5-year estimates. Those are for small geographies, less than 65,000. These are the data topics from the American Community Survey, broken down by social, demographic, economic, and housing. So for instance, if you wanted data for what's the educational attainment like in your city or town, what languages do people speak at home? Or if you look at the economic data, you can get estimates for what's the median household income in your city or town. What's poverty like? How do people get to work? What industries and occupations do people work in? And then we have any number of housing data topics as well, such as how old are the homes in your neighborhood? What's median home value like? How many households have access to the internet? Who owns and who rents their homes? And this is what I said before. It's released in 1-year and 5-year estimates. The 1 year is, of course, 12 months of collected data, whereas the 5-year is 60 months of collected data. The 1 year is for populations of 65,000 or more, and the 5-year are for statistics, basically all the way down to the block group level, so the sub-neighborhood level. The 1 year, of course, has a smaller sample size, so it's less reliable than the 5-year. The 5-year has a larger sample size, so it's more reliable. The 1 year is more current, and the 5-year is less current. So the 1 year is best used when your current data are more important or for analyzing large populations. The 5-year are best when precise data are more important or for analyzing small populations. So a lot of the times, if you look at smaller counties, census tracts, or census block groups, you don't have a choice. You have to use the 5-year. But if you have a population of 65, if you're looking at a state, for instance, then it's your choice to use the 1-year or the 5-year. Do you want to be more current or do you want to be more precise? This is our geographic hierarchy. If you look, it goes all the way down from the nation to the census block. The American Community Survey data is available at the block group level and up. At the block level, that's just 2020 census demographic data. So if you think of a block in your neighborhood, that's indicative of a census block. And if you put 2, 3, 4 or so of those blocks together, you come up with a block group. And then same thing right now. If you put 2, 3, 4 or so block groups together, you get a census tract. And a census tract has an optimum of about 4,000 population. So you could easily get any of those data topics that I showed you from the ACS for all counties in the United States if you wanted, or all zip codes in the United States, or all census tracts in your county. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about longitudinal employer household dynamics. Longitudinal employer household dynamics, which we call LEHD, it's data that is quarterly database of linked employer-employee data covering 95% of the employment in the United States. We have a partnership with the state labor market information agencies, and they provide us with their unemployment insurance wage records and their quarterly census of employment wage data. And we combine that with other data sources, namely with our censuses, our surveys, and we come up with the LEHD data. And it's called LEHD Origin Destination Employment Statistics, or LODES, LODES. Now I'd like to talk briefly about OnTheMap for emergency management. OnTheMap for emergency management, it's a public data tool that provides an intuitive web-based interface for accessing U.S. population and workforce statistics, but in real time for areas that are affected by natural disasters. It allows you to retrieve reports containing detailed workforce population and housing characteristics for hurricanes, floods, wildfires, winter storms, and federal disaster declarations. We don't have earthquakes or tornadoes or anything about a tsunami, but if it's a FEMA disaster declaration, it will be in the data. Our hurricanes, tropical storms, snowfall, freezing temperature, and floods all come from the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. Our disaster declarations come from FEMA. Our wildfires come from the Department of Interior and the Department of Agriculture. And our demographic and economic data comes from censuses, the 2020 decennial, and the 2021 American Community 5-year estimates, and also the 2020 LEHD data. We're going to look at social vulnerabilities via the American Community Survey. And then economic vulnerabilities, looking at the LEHD data, and then physical vulnerabilities via the ACS and the decennial. So using the ACS, we can see social and physical vulnerabilities. We can see households with people that are 65 years and over. We can see if they're disabled. We can see house heating fuel or the year structure built, to name a few physical vulnerabilities. Using the decennial data, we can access the physical vulnerabilities, whether a house, for example, is occupied or vacant. And to understand the economic vulnerabilities of the event, we could use the LEHD or loads data. We can look at the total number of workers in the impacted area, the industry in the impacted area, and the earnings for money lost to the workers in the impacted area. Here's OnTheMap for emergency management. If you look at the top of the page, you'll see the search box with a filter. You can type in keywords like Hurricane Idalia or Florida, or even add a DR or EM number for a disaster emergency declaration. And then we have a filter to the right of the box. The filter shows all the different events types, such as tropical storms, wildfires, and floods, and so forth. On the left is a list of current events that you could scroll down, and you could see it starts with post-tropical storm, followed by tropical depression 13, and so on. In the middle of the page, we have our map with the events that are current on September 5th. Using the legend on the far right, you can see the red flames stand for wildfires, which are mainly in the west and the south. A tropical storm is the green shape that's in the Pacific right now. There are a lot of FEMA disaster declarations across the country represented with the orange life preserver. There's also flooding along the East Coast as indicated by the yellow houses. If you notice on the right, the legend has blue check boxes. This allows you to turn off any of the events. For example, if you wanted to just see disaster declaration areas on the map, you simply just uncheck the others. Here I chose to look at a recent hurricane, Hurricane Idalia. You can change the event class to look at the forecast area or cone of uncertainty, or look at the actual impact. Here I'm looking at the forecast area of Hurricane Idalia. Notice that I have the detail by drop-down set to characteristics. By having on characteristics, I could look at any of the American Community Survey estimates or decennial census data for those located in Hurricane Idalia's projected path. Here, as you can see, I'm specifically looking at the population 65 and over who are in the projected path of that hurricane. So the actual impact, here I changed the event class to wind history 34 knots, cumulative swath, that shows the actual impact of Hurricane Idalia. And notice that we had 100 or 1.4 million 65 and over living alone in the path of the storm. But when the actual impact, it lowered to 883,000. You can also switch. I switched the detail by here to geography. We're still looking at the population 65 and over, but now it's broken down by the states, as you could see on the left here. And You can also go to select areas and go down all the way to the place level, to the city or town level in the path of that hurricane, the impacted area. And here, finally, I changed the detail by to origin destination. Now it shows me where workers employed in Hurricane Idalia's path actually live. I could also look at where workers are employed in Hurricane Idalia's path as well. This was at the state level. We could also look at workers down to the city or town level. Here I have a slide shows a worker inflow outflow analysis. It was made by using OnTheMap, which is OnTheMap's emergency management sister mapping application. It's called OnTheMap. And what I done was I exported on the map for emergency management the boundaries of Hurricane Idalia as a KML file, and I simply imported it into OnTheMap. And what this shows me is 624,089 people come from outside the boundaries of that impacted area to work in that impacted area. 5.2 million people live and work in this impacted area. And another 654,468 people, residents that are within that impacted area, leave to go work outside of that impacted area. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about community. Well, let me go back here. One second. I don't even know. So what I want to do now is I want to show you briefly OnTheMap for emergency management. So I'm going to go to Data Tools and Apps. And Data Tools and Apps, and I'm going to go down to, they're in alphabetical order. I believe it's on page 2. And OnTheMap for emergency management. So here's OnTheMap for emergency management, and here's your events on the left, and you can type in, as I said, either a location or the actual event. I'm going to type in, as I showed you before, Hurricane Idalia. So it's now showing me the actual impact of Hurricane Idalia. And I'm on characteristics. So this is the ACS data, the American Community Survey data. So you could see the impact of the hurricane in this. Here's all the ACS data. You've got race, Hispanic origin, ability to speak English, poverty, disability, population 65 and over, retirement income, and then you've got all sorts of housing data as well. So let's say that I want to know disability status by age. So I could see that people that are disabled 65 and over, maybe I want to look at that. So now it repaints the map according to that. And you could see there was 1.1 million, over 1.1 million 65 and over disabled, or 65 and over with a disability. So let's say that you can also change to geography. And it defaults to race total. So right now I'm looking at population numbers, total population in the affected area of that hurricane by state. You can also change it to a place level. And you could look at it on a place basis. So you could see the population per place in that hurricane path. And then finally, you can go and look at origin destination, and that'll give you, you could either, where are workers living in the event area employed, that'll give you the employment locations of the workers in that hurricane's path. Or you could switch it to where do workers employed in the event area live? And gives you the top ones where the most people are living, workers. So that's on the map for emergency management. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about community resilience estimates, or CRE. Community resilience estimates are produced using information on individuals and households from the 2021 American Community Survey and the Census Bureau's Population Estimates Program. The community resilience estimates use 10 possible risk factors based on ACS estimates. Income to poverty ratio, crowding, communication barrier, households without full-time year-round employment, disability, single or zero caregiver households, no health insurance, age 65 and plus, no vehicle access, and no broadband internet access. So those are the ACS estimates used to make the risk factors. Oops. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about My Community Explorer. The My Community Explorer tool includes data from the American Community Survey and also the County Business Patterns. County Business Patterns is a program by the Census Bureau. It's of every single and multi-unit or business establishment across the United States. It's constantly updated. You can get the number of establishments, you can get employment, and average annual payroll per employee. My Community Explorer also has non-employer statistics. Those are the number of self-employed persons and their average revenue. We also have active hurricanes, current wildfires, 3-day minimum maximum temperatures, and air quality monitoring site data. So here's My Community Explorer. And if you look at it, it's similar with the On the Map for emergency management. You could see it's mostly right now just wildfires across the United States. And you have some data here. This is for the United States right now, so it gives you some of the data, and it shows you the population with 3 or more risk factors of those risk factors that I showed you, 21.14%. And then it gives you some American Community Survey data as well. So I'm going to show you, briefly show you my Community Explorer. It takes a minute for it to load. So you could see the events on the map. And if you wanted to know, you could look at the left-hand side here and see that it has hurricanes in black. Then you've got the different things about hurricanes. And you've got the wildfires, air quality. Those would be dots. And then you've got the gray shape for heavy smoke. And then you've got different things about hurricanes, flash floods. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to turn off. I don't want to see all the emergency, disasters on here. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off that layer. And I'm going to zoom into the map. So what you see here are the different colors. Those are community resilience estimates. They track how at risk every neighborhood in the United States is to the impacts of a disaster. They use the American Community Survey microdata and the Population Essence program to measure the capacity of individuals and households to absorb the external stresses of the impacts of a disaster. And if you look at here, you could see the red or the brown here is the estimated population with 3 or more risk factors. The yellow is 1 to 2 risk factors. And the green or the light blue are 0 risk factors. So I'm going to go close that. I'm going to go towards, I'm just going to choose South Carolina. I'm going to click on a county. I'll click on, let's just do Berkeley. So I clicked on Berkeley County and it opens a box. And you could see in here, it has some of the ACS data. You could see it has people below the poverty level, 11.4%. 84.4% have a broadband subscription in Berkeley County. And it gives you the high school graduates are higher, people that speak English less than well, 65 and over. And then it gives you a Gini index of income inequality. And if you click this little arrow, the side arrow, you see that then it gives you it tells me that there are 16.79% of residents in Berkeley have 3+ risk factors. And then it'll tell you how many have 2, 1 to 2, 43.46%. And it does tell you if that's statistically different from the United States. And one neat thing with here is you see this link with blue, view detailed report via Census Business Builder. And what that does, it gives you a detailed report using data and estimates from our various surveys, our economic programs, the decennial census, county business patterns, which I mentioned. So it's broken down by different sections. You can look at the demographic characteristics. So that's all the ACS data for Berkeley County. You can look at socioeconomic characteristics as well. And you see that it gives, percent disabled, health coverage, how people get to work. So there's all sorts of socioeconomic data. And the same thing with housing characteristics as well. Average home value, median rent. And then you've got your business data as well. This is coming from basically from county business patterns and the economic census. Employment by establishment size. And then you've got different measures, population per employer, total annual payroll, and you've got business revenue for your non-employers, your self-employed people. You've got workforce data as well. And this is coming from the Census Bureau's quarterly workforce indicators. It's basically employment data and hiring data, separations. Then you've got quarterly businesses. And this is coming from the quarterly census of employment and wages from BLS. Gives you the number of establishment change, employment change, and wage and weekly wages. And then you've got building permits. Building permits are an indication of, it can be an indication of future growth. So we've got the building permit data from the building permit survey that the Census Bureau does. And you've got some comparisons by NAICS sector. Business totals, key ratios by NAICS sector as well. And then finally, you have consumer spending per household. This is coming from ESRI. So you could basically see what households spend almost on anything. So that is, I'm going to go back to Community Explorer. And also on here, you notice that it has the data for Berkeley County, like I pointed out before. It tells me there's 16.79 with 3+ risk factors, gives me some of the ACS data. And on the very bottom, you have links to tables. They're American Community Survey data tables in data.census.gov, our main data tool. So if you clicked on that in blue, you're just taken to some of our tables for Berkeley County. Poverty, food stamps, and this is a data profile, selected social characteristics of the United States, and then we've got selected housing characteristics. So any of these, like if I went into the data profile for selecting housing characteristics, you can see that it has basically everything you want to know about housing. Just one more thing. Now I'm going to turn back on, I'm going to close this. I'm going to turn back on the emergency preparedness layers. Oops. Yeah. Oh. Zoom out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to one of the events. I'll go to one of these wildfire. I'll just click on the event. And it tells me some of the information about that specific event. You can see this is a Tiger Island incident. It was a wildfire. It tells me how many acres were burned, and it gives you more information about that event. and you could see the affected area. The same thing, you can get a report on the affected area, just like I showed you. You can see the population in the area. You can see how many risk factors they have. And you could look at various ACS data in there, poverty, and different things like that. And one last thing I want to show you is I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And what you can do with, here's the lasso function. You can do that, and now when you did that, it'll group those counties together and give you the aggregate characteristics over here for that group. So you could see 16.2% poverty in this area, and so on. And one final thing I wanted to show you is you can do the steps here. You can select a state. So let's say I'll select Florida. And then I'll select a county. Let's say Broward County, Florida. Zoom out a little bit. So now I've got Broward County, Florida. I can go on the very bottom and switch from the interactive map. I can go to the economic profile. So you see here's an economic profile for Broward County. Shows me income to poverty, percent without population without health insurance, and different things. I can go to a social characteristics profile. Gives me different things about different data items, disability, living alone, without a vehicle, languages they speak at home. You can also look at the race and ethnicity. And then finally, you can also look at county business profile. And this shows me employer establishments, the self-employed by NAICS sector, average annual payroll per employee, and things like that. So one other thing that if you ever have any questions, you can always use the CRE frequently asked questions. So that is my Community Explorer. So just some things for resources for learning more. You can request a free data training on census.gov/academy. You can receive data gems if you want. Those are how-to short 1-2 minute videos to show you how to use a census data tool, for example. You can get access to our courses. There's a lot of recorded webinars that you can learn at your own pace. You can interact with our instructors via live webinars as well. And that's all on census.gov/academy. And here's my contact information. It's timothy.a.sarko@census.gov. And thank you very much.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much, Tim, for presenting
Thank you.
the U.S. Census data today. This is our time for Q&A. I want to open up to the group. There is so much information, tools, characteristics, profiles, and my favorite data gems that you can ask about right now. I see one in the chat. I will fire this off to you, Tim. There is a question that says, how do they define a home with a person with a disability? Curious where that data is getting pulled from.
You can actually look at the questionnaire. The ACS questionnaire is actually on census.gov. I mean, you just put it in the search on top, ACS form, and it will pull the actual. It asks if it's a series of questions actually on the ACS questionnaire. I want to say it's like 3 or 4. It has. I'm offhand. I'm not coming up with the. It has like, do you have any difficulty getting dressed or different things like that? So yeah, if you have any question about that, I would say just pull up the ACS questionnaire, the sample questionnaire, and you can see the actual questions that they asked to get the disability.
Great, thank you. I'm going to just keep on going through these questions, Tim, for you. Are heat waves being considered as an addition to the emergency management data?
That's a good one. I don't know. It would have to be a declared disaster declaration for it to be in the on the map for emergency management. So I'm not exactly sure that. I mean, I don't disagree that it should be probably, but I'm not sure at this time.
Okay. If anyone else has some information on that, please throw that in. I've got, thank you so much for your informative presentation. Here is another question. Can you save custom created communities in the My Community Explorer tool for later? So for example, there's a 9-county area that we consider our community of influence. So it'd be nice not to have to reselect it every time.
Let's see. I don't think so. No, I don't. I was trying to see if you could share it, but I don't believe you could save. I know for emergency management, the ability to share, but in My Community Explorer, I don't believe they have ability to, yeah, well, you could share it on My Community Explorer, share the link. But that's about it.
Okay. Looks like we've got questions. What was this data training site? And lots of people have answered and thrown in those links. Anyone else? We've got some time for your data-fueled questions. Here's one just popped in. How do you share results of your results with others, such as members of a healthcare coalition?
How do I share my results from the data tools? I mean, you could share the links, but I'm not understanding.
Yeah, Karen Pearson, wondering if that was the question. On the map has an export tool. So yeah. How do you share the results of your results with others is either using that export tool or sharing.
Yeah, on the map for emergency management, it has an export tool, whereas on the map, regular on the map has just an import tool. So you can import KML files, CSV, I think it has on the map for emergency management. And there's basically 5 different analysis that you can do on the map, regular on the map. And so if you import the boundaries of the event into on the map, you can do the analysis using on the map. I mean, it gives you more. It just basically tells you where people work down to the census block level within that event.
Hope that answered your question. Oh my gosh, if there's no more questions, but we still have time. So if you have any, throw them into the chat, of course. Tim, thank you so much. Many, many, many thanks to you and your presentation. And I'm, of course, going to thank all of you for attending today's session. I see lots of people are sending in thank yous. This was helpful, lots of information. The link for the class evaluation you'll see is on this slide and also being included in the chat. And we found it works best to copy this and paste it into your browser rather than clicking on it directly. Also, a reminder that you will receive an email from us in about a week with a link to the recording so that we can listen to Tim and learn more about those data tools every day if you'd like. And lastly, we encourage you to check out a newly updated NNLM Emergency and Disaster Resource Guide, which serves as an online collection of resources and tools relevant to disaster and emergency management. It is in the link, and I'll note it out loud, is nnlm.gov. Then we're doing a /guides/emergency-and-disaster-resources. It's also in the chat, and we want to say thank you so much again and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. If you have any last minute questions, we're here for you.
Sarah, one thing.
Yeah.
Our next event is tomorrow at 2 p.m. It's Asper Tracy.
And you heard it from April, right? Tomorrow, join us for Asper Tracy, 2 p.m. That'll be the second presentation out of this 6-expert forum. We welcome you to join us for every single one. Okay, yes, they may be forward slashes. Oh, they're slashes. How about that? So we got the link to the nnlm.gov training for the Asper Tracy tomorrow. We welcome you to join us and keep on learning about more preparedness webinars this month. Thank you so much. I'm still on. And Tim, thank you again. This was excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. This video was produced by the network of the National Library of Medicine. Select the circular channel icon to subscribe to our channel, or select a video thumbnail to watch another video from the channel.